All right, today we're back on the Skyline. A lot of work to do. I think what we're gonna start with is ripping off that spoiler, kind of assessing some damage that's on there as far as it goes for, some of the rust and stuff that's, notably on there. And then we're just gonna start working on it, so start body working it. And what we're gonna start with is assessing all this rust. So you're gonna see it here on the trunk. There's more as we come over onto these wipers. The wipers aren't as big of a deal, but we're definitely gonna do some tear down on that stuff, get it all cleaned up and repainted. This kind of stuff we're gonna need to start taking down to the metal. We gotta get that cleaned up, make sure that it doesn't continue to rust, start some body work on it. There's some other little minor things on here as well. But we'll just get to work on those things first, and then we can start cleaning up this car in its entirety. And then we'll start our wet sand and buff. Snap this paint back. And of course this trunk doesn't have any functioning struts. So we have a baseball bat. I think that'll do the job. Enough. First thing on here is gonna just be removing all of these little plastic clips. There's a bunch that are like a Phillips head kind of twist out. And then where these little covers are, just a push type. So I'm just gonna push these in, and I'm just gonna pull on the cover itself. Pop those right out. I think this is the last one. And now we're gonna have access to the nuts for the spoiler. So one in here. There's gonna be one up top there. Can't really see. And then in here, hopefully I can get an angle. There we go. There's just these little plastic retainers. So we'll take off those two nuts on each side. So there's more over here. And then push those little retainers out, and hopefully this spoiler comes out smoothly. But since I said hopefully it comes out smoothly, I probably won't. Now we'll be using a 10mm to take these off. I'm gonna try not to back them all the way out with the trunk like this. I'll probably lose them in the trunk. So I'm just gonna break them loose. Then I'll tilt this trunk down to me, and I'll just take these off upside down by hand. That way, hopefully I don't lose any. And then we'll prop it back up, and we'll release those little clips. All right, so those are all off. Let's stick those nuts down here. Prop this thing back up. See what we're dealing with on tension. Yeah, hopefully just when I push that little plastic clip out, it'll pop off. Let's see. And I'm gonna give my first crack at this just with a flat head. See if I can pry up a side, get it some tension, and then get the other side. Lost my baseball bat already. This thing sucks. I'm gonna have to try something else here. All right, so we're gonna take another go at this. This time with 2 screwdrivers. It looks like this giant hole was cut in here because they probably took this off before. So I was messing with this thing for a while. I'm like, man, there's absolutely no way that those little plastic retention clips are not letting loose. So I'm pretty sure it's just got a bunch of double-sided tape on there because I could see a little bit through it. So I have myself some 80-pound braided line. This is better than like your standard fishing string. The braided won't snap as easy. It cuts through a lot better. And we'll see if this is the problem. Oh yeah, it's definitely sawing through some stuff. It's just a question of how much is in there. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll hit this other side real quick. And if that doesn't do it, we're gonna resort to desperate measures. And hopefully there's nothing else. Let's try it again. So take 4. I am going to remove the top spoiler from the little pedestal posts. I should be able to remove those caps. And then we'll see if we can get to something else, or if I'm missing something. I don't know. Of course that wouldn't take it off. There's got to be something else. I hate this fucking thing. This is now my least favorite spoiler on the planet. Since I'm body working this anyway, I can show you what I did here. I just pried this up. I wasn't worried about scratching the trunk. Turns out they have definitely taken this spoiler off before, and it is stacked with double-sided tape. So normally there would be like a gasket, something like that to keep the water out, but this thing is just full of double-sided tape. So I have an opening enough over there behind the front bolt that I should be able to get some fishing line in now. And I'm gonna cut through that, and then this thing's coming off. So I'll be back to you with this off. Now that I got all that double-sided tape off of here, I think this should go. Just like I said earlier though, I'm like, oh yeah, it should be kind of easy. Of course it's not. Anytime I say that, it's not easy at all. Oh yeah. Here's one side. And let's get the other. And right now I'm just trying to rotate the plastic clip around a little bit so I can actually clamp onto it with these pliers on both sides. Oh, there we go. What an ordeal that was. This is all double-sided tape. This is not factory gasket, and it is a tremendous amount. I'll get new gaskets for this. I hate that people do this stuff all the time. I mean, all they really needed was a little piece right there, a little tab on each end, really, just to cover up those holes, make sure water doesn't get in. But instead, this is just all this tape. But I'm really happy to see the rust is only right there. Everything else is pretty clean. So on these edges where some of this water can collect, has some surface rust, but it's not bad. So that's gonna make my body working a lot easier. So now I got all that tape cut out. I just have some 320 here on an orbital sander, and we're just gonna start sanding through some of this rust. Again, it looks like it's just surface rust, so hopefully that's all we find here. I didn't see anything on the underside. So far so good. And then we're gonna hit this little portion where the third brake light is. So I just popped that third brake light out. Should I be wearing a respirator? Yeah, but do I ever? No. Hold my breath. All right, so we're getting closer. Some of this does go pretty deep. They definitely did a real shit job of prep whenever they painted this in the past, and that's why we're running into this issue. So I'll get this all taken down. I'm gonna call it for the night after this. I'm gonna start grinding on here, so I'll stop recording. But I'm gonna get all this taken down. I'll run a stop rust coat on here just to make sure that doesn't continue in the future. Then I'll start body working this thing. This is gonna get wrapped, so from where this line is, all the way down the trunk line and then into this line here, I'm gonna wrap that in black, and then we'll mirror that up on the roof. So it should be looking pretty good. It'll hide all of the paint imperfection because that's gonna be primed out. But we'll get back at this tomorrow. All right, so it's the next day. We got that trunk pretty much prepped. Everything for the stop rust is going to be put on now. So there's a pre-treatment that goes on. Did the pre-treatment already. This is the next thing that's gonna go on. This is port 15. So this is actually going to assist with the rust prevention in the future. We'll get that stuff all on there. While that's curing, we're gonna start working on these gutter rails. So all these little rain rails that come across the top, it's all broken. We're gonna rip that off, strip off all the double-sided tape, and then get working on this body the rest of the way. So this is what we're using here. From port 15, you can get a little kit. So this is just the metal prep that's already gone on there for that exposed metal. And then closer over here is going to be our rust prevention coating. So this will just get painted on. This is gonna cure black, but they do other colors as well. And I would compare this to like moving resin with fiberglass or something like that, if you're familiar, where it kind of levels itself out and it just extends much further than you would expect a paint to typically brush out. And this is all coated. And shouldn't be any more rust coming through there, hopefully. I'm sure it'll find its way somewhere else. But now on to these things. All right, so on this little window guard cover, it has a series of metal tabs. Usually these tabs are put in place kind of just to hold this generally in the space that needs a little extra support. And then there's like some areas of double-sided tape. This one's running a solid bead of double-sided tape, similar to what they did with the spoiler. So we'll see. I may not even need these tools. We may be able to just kind of break this out. It definitely looks like somebody else was trying to peel this one before. Yeah, so this looks like it should probably just peel out. It's gonna break in a couple areas. I'm sure this feels really brittle. We'll just slide it out of the metal clips for now, and we'll pull the metal clips out after. And then cleaning this up is gonna suck, but this is where that Ulex compound is gonna come into play. So that Ulex you've seen me use on other videos as far as pulling out contaminants and sticky residues, anything really adhesive based. But this is certainly going to suck. I've had this out in the sun. It's pretty hot out here. I'm in California, so like Central California is hot 90% of the year. So we're already having hot days, and it's still not really making a difference with how gummy this is. So I'll probably get some heat on it. These guys, if anything that they did right, they picked a good company for double-sided tape, because man, this stuff is pretty stout. I'm just gonna skim some of this off first with just a flathead screwdriver. If you decide to try something like this yourself, be careful. You definitely have to have a feel for it to make sure that you're not cutting so deep that you're scratching up the material underneath. So all I'm doing is just skimming the majority of it out, and then it leaves this thin layer of it, and that's gonna be a lot easier for me to come back with compound, or not compound, but chemical rather, to take the rest of that out. But if I try to hit this with just the chemical as it is, with as thick as all this tape is, it's just gonna melt it and smear it around. And that could make my life a lot harder than it already is. So for now, again, cutting just a layer off the top. Little layers. And then we just continue our way all the way through it. So I'm gonna try to give you an example. I'll kind of hit this area right here on how we run that Ulex. So It's on the paper towel right now. This doesn't evaporate as fast as like isopropyl alcohol, anything like that. I'm gonna wipe it on. It's gonna get pretty saturated. Then I'm gonna wipe it with the dry side. So right here is just a wet side, a dry side. So I hit it with that wet side. And then I'm gonna hit it with the dry side. And that's what's gonna help this gum up like that and start to peel away. So see, for example, in just this little spot right here, that's cleaning that out entirely. And then the rest of this is just starting to deteriorate. And as it saturates, it'll still start to eat at it. And then we'll come back. It gets easier and easier as you work our way through. But I like this way, even though it takes a little bit longer than say like an eraser wheel, because the eraser wheel, you risk cutting through this stuff and then damaging everything underneath it. And then this is just a really non-intrusive way of cleaning this stuff out. And you see that gumming off and falling right off. So we just make some passes at it, take some time, so I'm not gonna bore you with all the recording of it, but at least you know how it works, and it'll definitely get the job done. All right, so we got all that gunk cleared out of here. We're now just gonna give this thing a big spray down with the pressure washer, knock some of the little gummed up residue that's on there, get a quick wash on here. We gotta get this thing prepped up for us to be able to start claying it and then sanding through it. And here's how we're looking after just a wash. So still need to run our cut and buff. Got to wet sand a couple areas that are pretty beat. This here is one of those spots. Some of this is going all the way down through the clear into the paint. So I'll try to find some touch-up color for this. Hopefully I can get something on there, and then once I run the buff, we should be able to hide most of the imperfections, even where the touch-up paint is. Before we just start cutting into this thing with wet sandpaper, I want to see how much chemical can take off. So again, using that Coach Kimmy Ulex, we're just going to put some on a paper towel. At least in these areas here, it looks like it's just some smudging, maybe some paint transfer from whatever they hit. We'll see if this is able to pull it. Hopefully it picks up okay on the camera. If it does, yeah, and some of this stuff is deep. So definitely going to need some touch-up paint on those deeper scratches. But you can see this has pulled out that paint transfer that was all up on the top. Now we're just going to be left with a little bit of smudging here. This isn't wet sand worthy. That should actually just buff out with the cutting compound. The rest of this stuff, we're going to have to see if we can find some good paint to match it, or something at least close enough. Now we're on to some clay bar. I use Meguiar's, so Meguiar's kit comes with, you know, a few bricks of clay. It comes with this quick detailer, which you use as your lubricant spray. It's kind of hot outside, so I'm going to use some smaller areas. Clay bar is really straightforward. If you've never done it before, I get some lubricant on the car where I want to clay it. I've kneaded this into a nice little pancake, and then I'm just going to run my hand through it. You'll feel as you're passing any of the little contaminants that are in there, and as it starts to smooth out is when I'm gonna move myself to the next area. So a couple things as far as the lubricant goes. So you don't wanna over lubricate it where the clay's not really able to work. It's just sliding all over, you know, liquid. And you don't wanna under lubricate it, because then the clay's gonna get stuck and it'll actually leave clay residue all over the car, which you're gonna have to come back and clean again, either by using more clay or using some other form of chemical that eats away at the clay. So just be mindful of how much of that spray you're putting on there for that quick detailer. You can always start off a little more modest and then add a little bit if you need to. But I'm just gonna run this throughout the whole car. This fender's already about done. It doesn't feel horrible, so I'm not gonna have to really eat at this for a long time. And then we'll come back and we'll just start hitting things with the buffer. I'm gonna be running a rotary on this one. So RPM on this, I'll be running about 1800, between 1600, 1800 RPM. Got my little air compressor over here, just filled up so I can clean out the pad when I need to. And then outside of that, we're just going to get some heavy cut compound and start getting a move on it. So this this paint is not great, so I imagine we're gonna need all stages of correcting it. But we'll see how much of it starts to snap back. And to show you some of the difference here, so this line running down here, that's where it hasn't been polished. And there is a notable difference in color and condition. So this is already coming out really smooth. I'm pretty happy with that, actually. I didn't think this paint was doing well enough to look that good after a polish. So this side is done, at least with the cut. Look at that reflection. Woo. Looking pretty good. We still haven't thrown on our polish layer yet to show you where that bad scuff was. So that's gone. Definitely still have this to deal with. But again, maybe just get some touch-up paint in there, and then we'll polish that out. I've gone up through this pillar, and then I haven't hit any of this stuff. This still has a little bit, a couple little pits that needed to be filled after we ran all that stop rust. That'll be sanded out the rest of the way and then primed up the rest of the way, and then we'll get that wrapped. But just wanted to check in on there. We'll start hitting the other side. So we're gonna wrap this car up for the day. We'll flip you around here so you can see it, but it came out pretty good. I still have to hit the trunk, and then I'll do the wrap on the trunk, and I have to do the back bumper, and then the touch-up paint stuff that I just slapped on there. It looks gross right now, but I'll wet sand and buff that out and it'll look less gross. So nice and shiny and smooth now. So I still got to hit this whole territory. I got to sand out the rest of that primer. And then here's this side. Night and day difference. But I think I'm gonna call it for this video on this stuff. And when we get back to it, it's gonna be us doing the wrap on the roof, wrap on the trunk, getting that spoiler reinstalled. I think I'm gonna tint these. These things are looking all faded. So I think I'm just gonna tint those lighter black. May or may not tint some of the other ambers. And if we don't like it, we'll just take it off. But we'll see you on the next one.